You're listening to Physician Non-Clinical Careers with John Jurica. This is episode 267, Why You Should Embrace the Powerful Mastermind Principle. Welcome back, Non-Clinical Nation, to this week's podcast. Before I introduce today's topic, I have a request. If you enjoy this podcast, please support it with a small monthly or one-time donation. It only takes a minute to do that. Consistently producing high-quality show every week takes planning, time, and money. There are costs for recording, saving, editing, and distributing each episode. I pay a team that includes a podcast coordinator, editor, transcript writer, and a social media marketing consultant. Then there's time devoted to finding, vetting, and prepping for each guest and for researching, writing, recording each solo episode. I personally devote at least 12 hours of my time creating each and every episode. In the end, I believe my team and I produce a show that inspires, encourages, and teaches you, my listeners, to begin and follow your non-clinical career journey. I know this because I hear from you with comments like the following. All right, let me list some of these comments I've gotten as feedback. First one, I have learned so much from John Jurica and his podcast. They are really informative and inspiring. Or, he's an excellent tour guide through the world of non-clinical careers. How about, John's interviews really opened up my eyes to all the wonderful job opportunities. And the podcast helped me get an understanding of the landscape of non-clinical careers. Here's the last one. I know it takes a lot of work, and I'm very grateful to John for all he does to help physicians with their careers. Okay, one more. It motivates me to keep trying new things and never give up on my dreams. Each episode brings show notes with useful links to tools, coaches, training programs, and professional associations to help you on your career journey. And there's a free transcript to download so you don't have to take notes, and that's in the show notes. So help me continue to invite exciting new guests and new ways to bring freedom and autonomy with less frustration and overwhelm. Simply go to nonclinicalphysicians.com/donate and discover how you can keep this podcast going with a very modest one-time or monthly donation. Now, let me thank my sponsor. Having said that, I do get a little support from the University of Tennessee, which offers the longest running and most highly respected only executive MBA in the country. It's produced more than 700 graduates, and for some career pivots, you really need that MBA. The Haslam College of Business at the UT was recently ranked number 1 in the world by Economist magazine as the most relevant executive MBA program. And unlike most other programs, the UT PEMBA only takes 1 year to complete. And since you will complete a company project while working on your MBA, you'll quickly demonstrate the value of the degree while in the program. Graduates have taken leadership positions at major healthcare organizations and have become entrepreneurs and business owners. I know I've spoken with many of them. So if you want to acquire new business and management skills and advance your non-clinical career, contact Dr. Kate Atchley's office at 865-974-6526 or simply use our handy link at nonclinicalphysicians.com/physician MBA. Okay, today I want to discuss a topic that many of you might not be familiar with. In the world of career transition and in business, this is a concept called the mastermind or the mastermind group. I defined the term mastermind group in episode number 208 called How Do I Choose the Best Coaches, Mentors, and Masterminds for Me? So I included a little description of masterminds then. But today I'd like to dig deeper into the concept of the mastermind group and try to convince you to figure out a way to participate in one of them. So first, let me tell you a little story from my history. I served as the CMO for a small community hospital for over a decade. The senior management team included all the C-suite people, the CEO, the CFO, CNO, CMO, CIO. There are also some, VPs in there. There are about 10 or 11 of us most of the time. And I was the CMO. And we met weekly either to discuss operations or strategic planning, follow up on our management goals, and so forth. And there was a coach that the CEO had hired and who he was employing for quite a while. And he made his coach available to the VPs and the CIO and all of us on that senior management team to work with him and meet with him on a regular basis if we wanted to. And as part of that coach would come to one of our meetings every month or two, and he would lead us through a process designed to help one of the VPs, overcome a challenge in their division. So we would meet for an hour or so, and one of us would describe a challenge we were facing. Then the other members of the group would ask questions to help clarify the problem. And we called this being on the hot seat, or being in the hot seat, however you want to phrase it. And even though I use the term hot seat, that was not a negative, because when we had a challenge, which we all did, we were working in healthcare, which is constantly experiencing new challenges, less payment, more regulations, difficulty hiring, finding good people, you name it. We actually look forward to being on the hot seat so we could leverage the expertise and experience of the rest of the group to help solve a problem. And, the thing was, once you were in the seat, you would then be questioned and queried by the other members as the first step. And it was a critical step because identifying the real problem often actually reveals the solution in many cases. So let me give you an example. So I thought that an uptick in the number of sentinel events, those are serious patient safety issues that come up in any hospital. I thought it was due to staffing issues, and I couldn't see how we could increase staff sufficiently to reduce the errors, And these errors they're important because they affect patients, but they're actually tracked by public health, the state health department, and Medicare, and Joint Commission. And so in this case, we really needed to come up with a way to reduce these sentinel events. And then by answering a few probing questions by the rest of the team, it became really clear to me that the issue was the one of the culture of the organization which needed to be addressed. That it really wasn't the fact that we didn't have enough staff, but that our staff looked at safety not as a priority at that time. Now, granted, they wanted to give the best care they could give, and everyone tried their best, but the reality was that the issue of safety was way down below, the top 2 or 3 or 4 things that our staff thought about when they were taking care of patients. And so as we were discussing this, it became more and more clear to me that it was a cultural issue. It needed to be addressed that way. And, eventually then we took some time to discuss, well, how could we improve the culture of safety in our organization, and then we also brainstormed some ideas on how to actually do that. So what typically we would do after clearing the true nature of the problem, the rest of the team would ask other probing questions, such as, what have you tried so far to resolve this issue, and what other things have you considered and discarded, and why? And then, like I said, we did a brainstorming session, and the coach that was there would really encourage us to brainstorm any and all ideas. Normally when you're brainstorming, sometimes you will hold back because you'll think ideas might sound stupid or they've never been tried before, and so you just don't even contribute those. But the coach is there to promote and to say, look, nothing is off the table. Think outside the box. Whatever you come up with, share it, and then we'll talk about it. So over time, the suggestions could become more and more outrageous or extreme, but eventually we would have 10 or 12 potential tactics to consider to address an important problem. And I was always amazed by how many ideas would come up, something that I wouldn't have thought would happen. They would just come up. And, the thing about the coach that he did, and which I try to do now in most all of my meetings, is not let the stronger personalities take over the conversation. It's very common to be in a committee meeting of 6 to 8 or 10, 12 people and find that only 1 or 2 people dominate the conversation, even when the chair is trying to elicit responses. But this coach is great, and I've learned to do the same thing of saying, okay, we've heard what you said, Dan. Now, Susan, can you please tell us what you're thinking? You haven't spoken up yet. And so that's a good strategy in any committee or any team. But that's what happens in a hot seat. You're encouraged. You're trying to encourage everybody to ask questions and then do some brainstorming. I'll give you another example. Our COO and our VP for strategic planning both had been with the organization for a long time, and they were always the first ones to jump in with a solution anytime the CEO brought something to our regular meetings. And my style was to spend more time considering possible solutions before speaking up, and sometimes it meant I wouldn't even respond during this meeting. I would come back a week or two later to another meeting and say, hey, I was thinking about some things we were talking about last time. And I wanted to do it back in that meeting context because that way I would share it with everybody instead of just going to the COO or going to the CEO. And then we could have a short conversation and maybe others had thought of ideas. So I think it was just something that it happens often in any senior management team. Anyway, at the end of this conversation, our coach would ask the person on the hot seat which of the ideas seemed to be worth exploring further and get us to commit to what would we do of those ideas, which would we follow up on, and then there would be a time frame. So this is a way you maintain accountability. So I would say, look, this has been fantastic. You've given me some great ideas. I'm going to look into, let's say, for example, we're talking about the culture of safety. I'm going to look into what the best practices are for creating a culture of safety in a hospital, and I'll report back. I have done some research in the past, and I know that doing a survey is a part of that, so I will bring back some examples of cultural surveys for employees, specifically those for culture of safety. And then at some point, 2, 3, 4 weeks down the road, we would follow up, and it'd be on the list of things that the CEO wanted to talk about would be my follow-up. Or we would do it if we were doing a series of, let's say, mastermind groups every 2 or 3 months. So what I've described here is a mastermind session. When you use the term hot seat, and particularly when you're talking about a group getting together and solving a problem, it's often one of these mastermind sessions. And a lot of business people have been using these for years and years, but you don't hear about them being used a lot for career transition. They can really be used for any kind of group getting together to support and encourage one another to make progress in whatever it is they're talking about. So any collection of people going through this kind of process is called a mastermind group, or more simply, just a mastermind as a shorthand. It's a process that's been around for a long time. Some people believe it was started by Napoleon Hill, who may have coined the term in the 1930s. He was a self-help author and was known for his book Think and Grow Rich, which was published in 1937. And I think it was in this book that I found this topic, this quote from the book, and let me just read it to you now. Now, here are some interesting facts about the mastermind, which give you an idea of how important it is and how necessary that you embrace this principle and make use of it in attaining success in your chosen occupation. First of all, it is the principle through which you may borrow and use the education, experience, and influence, and perhaps capital of other people in carrying out your own plans in life. It is the principle through which you can accomplish in 1 year more than you could accomplish without it in a lifetime if you depended entirely on your own efforts for success. So that's the end of that quote, but you can kind of get the idea. You have to form a group, and you learn and work with that group, and you accomplish a lot more by working in a formal mastermind type situation. He originally called it a mastermind alliance. Later it was shortened to mastermind group, or more simply, a mastermind. So why am I belaboring this topic? Well, because I believe that the mastermind is an awesome tool that you can add to your arsenal to enhance your growth and to succeed. So this is even if you're doing clinical medicine and you're in a group and you want to progress in the group, Believe me, if you get together with a group of similar such physicians and talk about how can you progress in your practice clinically and administratively, you'll move much quicker than those that don't do such a mastermind session. So here's some, characteristics of a mastermind. Okay, so mastermind groups help like-minded professionals get peer support, brainstorm ideas, and create accountability. Those are three of the big parts of it. They're typically goal-oriented and success-driven. And some people have even used the term personal board of directors to refer to a mastermind group. So the thing is, the members of the group are committed to the success of one another, to the success of the other members of the group. And, there's a belief that you're basically the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. In other words, your success in life, your happiness, your advancement in a job are related to the people that are around you, because you learn from them, and they begin to expect certain things of you and you of them. So that's just in general. Well, that's why we call a mastermind a personal board of directors, because it's just like that, but in a more organized and committed fashion. It's overt. Another important component of a mastermind are resources and connections. So actually, the people in a mastermind have been known to support one another financially. Now, not to form a co-op or something, but to make referrals, to use their products, that sort of thing. And the other thing is, when you're in a mastermind, you can learn what other tools people have used to get their advancement and to progress. Or like a lot of times in the online world of courses and coaching and so forth, we learn from our cohort, our colleagues in the field, and particularly those in a mastermind group. Okay, what electronic tools do you use, and what professional societies do you belong to, and where did you learn how to podcast? Where did you learn how to use email? What products are you using? So it's resources and connections are really important. Some masterminds lead to business partnerships. And even it can go so far as to learn skills, which can be shared and learned in some masterminds, where someone actually takes an hour and lectures the rest of the group. Although that's not the core part of a mastermind. The core part is this process of questioning and digging and encouraging. Now, let me give you a list of just some of the famous people going way back who actually attributed their success to being members of a mastermind. So that includes Andrew Carnegie. There are writers including C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, Charles Williams, and Owen Barfield, who were in masterminds. President Theodore Roosevelt attributed some of his success to being in a mastermind. And one of the more famous masterminds ever was one that included Henry Ford, Tom Edison, President Warren G. Harding, Harvey Firestone. They were all members of the same mastermind, and you can imagine that they were all buoyed up by each other's success and learned from each other as they were sort of progressing in the early industrial revolution in this country. Now, the original masterminds obviously met in person, but now it's easy to have meetings remotely, with online conferencing. And not every mastermind follows the exact same outline or same way to approach things. People have taken masterminds and done them in different ways. So, there's such a thing as a face-to-face 1 or 2 hour mastermind session, like I talked about with our CEO. And the person on the hot seat might spend a whole hour on the hot seat during that time, and then there might be a second person on the hot seat. More recently, there's been something that was touted as the 8-minute mastermind, which I have adopted as a 10-minute mastermind. But there is a book written, I'm just checking, there's a book written by Brad Hart. I have a copy of the book over here, called The 8-Minute Mastermind, in which he describes his success with doing this kind of mastermind. And I found it so compelling that I just started my own 10-minute masterminds committed to career advancement and career transition. Let's see. There's another type where you might spend an entire weekend or even 3 or 4 days together and get together with people where each person during that weekend gets to spend several hours on the mastermind hot seat. So if you had, let's say 10 people, and you might have this interspersed with some lectures, but then in between you're getting together and, attendee number 1 gets to spend an hour on the mastermind and attendee number 2 gets to spend an hour in the hot seat, I should say. And so they can be constructed in different ways. So anyway, I mentioned that I created a 10-minute mastermind. And so let me explain to you how I run my mastermind groups. I recruited a group of physicians to meet once a month using Zoom. Okay, pretty straightforward. We limit the time in the hot seat to 10 minutes. Okay, so now that's a little tight. But the advantage of doing 10 minutes is that every time we meet, we can all get 10 minutes on the hot seat. Usually I don't get on the hot seat personally. Sometimes I do if we have time, but I devote it to the other members. And so let's say that we have 7 members. We've got a little bit of time at the front and at the back end, starting up and closing. And so with 7 members, we can spend 70 plus or minus minutes, each one getting on the hot seat for 10 minutes. And during that time, they go through this process. It's very focused. And this is how I've been running mine, and I really like it, and the members have really liked it. So, and in this way, also, you get everybody on the hot seat at every meeting, so everybody feels they're making progress. Now, I will say this. If you attend a mastermind meeting and you run out of time or you just decide not to share, that's fine, because you know what? You learn so much by listening to the challenges and the problems of others in the group. So, and that was even true when I was back as a CMO in the where I was not on the hot seat, but I was participating. I was learning a lot. And the same thing, I can't tell you how many times I've had physicians who've participated in one of these meetings and they had to drop off, or we just had too many people to fit in a 90-minute meeting, and they said they learned so much. Because as you're brainstorming for other people, there's a lot that overlaps with what you might need. So let me walk you through the process that I follow, and maybe it's something that you can do on your own, forming your own group. So I facilitate the meetings, and once we're all together, I actually record them. We run them on Zoom, and the member the first one on the hot seat spends 30 to 40 seconds introducing themselves. Obviously, they can't go into a very long, step-by-step what they did during their whole career and their education and training, but they just introduce themselves. And the thing is, since these meetings are recurring, over time we really get to know each other, even though we're only spending 30 to 60 seconds, introducing ourselves. Then I ask everybody to describe something that they're grateful for or that they're celebrating. We like everything here to be on a positive note. We're all here to encourage one another, to help each other advance, and to find success in their lives, in their profession, maybe even their personal lives. And so we all start by talking about something, maybe like my daughter got married last weekend. It was fantastic. Or I just got a new puppy. Or, I just got this new job. I was promoted in this job I'm doing in my practice, and it gives me a chance to do some new things. So any of these things are positive. You've got the intro, you've got the thing you're grateful for or celebrating, and then you have to describe the challenge that you're bringing to this meeting. Again, we're not going to focus on something like, well, I'm not sure if I should leave my practice or not. I mean, we can, but that's not a very focused challenge. Now we might move forward, but we might ask for someone to be a little more specific. So we try to find an individual challenge for that meeting, for that month. And, we all have multiple challenges. So it's not necessarily going to be what you'd expect, but it's, it should be focused, but not too focused. And we learn over time as we meet over and over again how to do this. But here's one. I'm really unhappy in my job, but I don't know whether I should look for another job or leave medicine altogether. That's a pretty big challenge. We could take that on, but if possible, it should be a little more focused. Like, I've decided I want to pursue a job in pharma, but I'm not sure where to start. That's a little more focused. Or here's another one. I'm a hospitalist and I work a few hours per week as a part-time medical director, but I'd like to figure out how to become a full-time medical director or chief medical officer. Okay, still pretty broad, but a little more focused. How about this one? I need to work from home, and I've narrowed my options down to medical writing or medical communications with an agency, and I'm not sure how to decide which direction to go. So that's a little more. Now we're getting down to a choice between two. But it could be even something as specific as, I've been working in medical communications as an associate medical director, but I need to kind of learn how to advance in my job. So I'd like to get some support and some help from the group to how do I prepare myself and position myself to advance in a job that's already non-clinical. So at that point, there'll be a lot of clarifying questions. That's the next step. The other members ask the person in the hot seat clarifying questions. It's interesting because sometimes in clarifying the question is actually something else, something behind the first iteration of what you say about a question. And by simply clarifying it, you sometimes achieve the solution. You find a solution to it. So we spent a lot of time, that probably might be 2, 3, 4 minutes, other members asking questions to try and clarify the question. And then they'll ask more probing questions such as, well, what have you tried? What's worked? Or what has partially worked? What hasn't worked? And then as we think about similar situations for us, we'll ask them more leading questions. Well, I tried this in a similar situation. Have you ever tried that? And then you might, move on to, well, if you haven't tried it, what do you think of trying it? How would it look if you were to try it? Sometimes we'll ask, kind of questions a coach would typically ask. Sometimes we'll say something a little cheeky, like, well, I know this seems like a difficult problem, but if it were easy, what would it look like? And so on and so forth. There's thousands of questions you could potentially ask. But usually, people start to have aha moments and they start to get insights, and others starts making suggestions like, I have a friend who did and they told me that the way they got over this hump was by doing this. Or, the way that I found the experience I needed to advance in my group was I started volunteering for things. Or, I know I was having a hard time getting a job in pharma till finally I figured out I needed to have the name of someone that I could get in touch with and let them know I was submitting an application and a resume, and I got a lot better response than just sending it online to just this black box of, where resumes go to die. So there's all kinds of specific feedback you can get. And usually at the end, I will ask somebody, before we close on their 10 minutes, okay, now, number one, what have you gotten and what are the 2 or 3 things you're going to follow up on and for the next time that we meet? Now, we don't always ask at the next meeting for them to dictate or to list everything that they said they were going to do and did they do it and what did they find out? I mean, we're all professionals. We expect people are going to listen and then follow up on things that are pointed out. But sometimes we will, and sometimes people will just naturally do that at the next meeting where they'll say, oh yeah, I was going to check out this recruiting firm. I was going to check out, this article or buy this book or something like that. And the last thing we close with at the end is I usually ask them if they feel like they've been supported, because in a group, at a minimum, the members of the group support and encourage one another. And usually there are very actionable things that come up, whether generated by the person in the hot seat themselves or solicited from the people on the call. And then this whole process goes with the next person, the next person, the next person. Over time, you become very good at doing it. And so I've seen many times where we've had just one little nugget or one little referral to a company or to a website or a podcast episode or anything will have solved the person's problem and overcome their challenge, and they'll come back and they'll be just so happy. I mean, these breakthroughs don't happen for everybody at every meeting, but the whole group keeps progressing and progressing at each meeting. It's very rewarding and very positive. So that's my experience with masterminds. And again, I would think we should all be in some kind of a mastermind. So I think it's a useful and powerful tool for advancing your business. If you're in a small business, advancing your career. It's used all the time for people that work in business outside of healthcare. And I think we need to bring it into the healthcare situations more than we have in the past. The other thing is, for a business owner, it's a great way to connect and build relationships, learn new skills, and keep up with new developments in the field, because it's an automatic way to network and communicate. And for someone wishing to switch careers, it's awesome for hearing about what others have tried, to get encouragement and support, to brainstorm new ways to approach your job search, and maintain accountability so you move forward consistently to that next job or that next career. So my advice at this point, after going through all of that, is to implore you to either join an existing mastermind or to start your own. So I've prepared a short worksheet called Starting a 10-Minute Mastermind, and it describes how to start your own mastermind. And it includes the outline that I follow for the 10-minute non-clinical masterminds that I run. So there'll be a little bit of an overview. What are the steps to finding people and getting together? And then also the little outline that I use to actually run my 10-minute mastermind. You don't have to do yours that way. You can follow one of the other formats, but I thought I had to put at least one way to do it. And so if you can just reach out to 6 or 7 people that you know and start doing this in person, somewhere near your home, or even online using Zoom. Most of us have access to Zoom, and most groups, I send the Zoom meeting announcements to my groups personally, but somebody else in the group could do it if they needed to in my absence. Anyway, so to get that worksheet free, obviously, you can just find that by going to nonclinicalphysicians.com/my-mastermind-startup. It's all one word, My Mastermind Startup. Now, I'll give you another option. If you can't find a mastermind among your colleagues, or if you can't put one together for whatever reason, or you don't want to start your own, then you should consider joining one of mine. They're structured as a monthly group that meet on Wednesday evening or Saturday morning once a month. And for my masterminds, there's a very low fee to join. It will be going up in October, but if you join now, it's locked in for as long as you stay in the mastermind. But it is an annual type of thing, so it's 12 meetings over a year. We record the meetings, and everyone gets a copy of the recording. We also, I keep track of some of the resources. We communicate in the chat also, which I download and share with everybody as well. So we do everything we can to make sure everybody has access to all the resources that come up during the meeting, and they also can go back and re-listen to it if they like. So I'll put a link to that. To access my mastermind, you go to nonclinicalphysicians.com/mastermind, and it should take you right to the page where you can sign up. Sometimes I turn that off and I just collect names rather than have the sign up, but for now I'm actually signing people up. Again, nonclinicalphysicians.com/mastermind. And you can find that link and the link to the startup worksheet that I talked about a minute ago in the show notes of today's episode at nonclinicalphysicians.com/powerful-mastermind. That's powerful-mastermind. Just go to the show notes. Everything's in there, including a copy of transcript of today's episode. So that's always nice to go through again if you kind of have questions about what I talked about today instead of looking through the whole thing are listening through the whole thing. This will also be posted on YouTube most likely. All right, so that's all I have for today. Before we go, let me remind you that NewScript is a community of clinicians writing a new script for their careers and lives, and it's still accepting new members. We've seen a big influx recently in new members to NewScript, which you can find at newscript.app or go to nonclinicalphysicians.com/NewScript. The price is going to be going up within the next 4 weeks. So this is in September of 2022. So it's a very low price to be in NewScript right now. There's a lot of people in there, mostly physicians, but this is for all clinicians. So there's nurses, there's dentists, there's podiatrists, there's physicians, there's APNs, there's PAs, and there's RNs. You don't have to be, a doctorate level. Anybody in healthcare that's really struggling, NewScript is a great place to check out. Once you pay a monthly fee, the membership's very low. It's less than $5 per month right now. It's locked in for life. So when we increase the fee later, you'll be at the lower fee for forever. Remember that this podcast is made possible by the support of the University of Tennessee Physician Executive MBA program. You can learn more about that at nonclinicalphysicians.com/physician MBA. And some of the links that I refer you to and that you'll find in the show notes are affiliate links. That means I receive a payment from the seller if you purchase the affiliate item using my link. I don't think I had any affiliate links today. The opinions expressed here are mine and mine alone. So the information is true and accurate to the best of my knowledge, but there's no guarantee that following what I'm telling you will lead to success in your career life or business, although I certainly hope it will. Always consult an attorney, an accountant, or a career counselor or strategist before making any major decision about your career. I hope to see you right here next week on the Physician Non-Clinical Careers Podcast next Tuesday. All right, hope to see you then. Bye-bye.